Hello cuties. I know this video is a little bit late, but I don't think anyone actually cares how late this video is. So moving on already. Hello, we're gonna talk about all the books that I read in January very briefly, and we're gonna focus on the stats because as you all know, or you might be new here, hello if you are, I love spreadsheets, I love stats, I track an insane amount of things for my reading because I just like looking at graphs a lot, and that's what we're gonna look at today. Before we get to the actual stats though, I am going to show off all the books that I read in January. I read a grand total of 22 books. I went a little bit crazy. I did complete the January TBR. The January TBR only had actually 10 books, so I read 12 extra books. Now granted, I did go on a little vacation and was able to do a bunch of reading that way, but otherwise I'm just an insane person who reads a ton. I'm gonna briefly go over what I read and what I gave them. Without further ado, let's talk about them books. So the very first one, the first two technically I had started like the day before I was trying to finish them for New Year's Eve and I didn't, so I finished them on New Year's Day. But the first one is How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories by Holly Black. This is little short stories from Cardan's point of view from the Cruel Prince trilogy, and it was fun and great. I gave it 4 stars. I really like the illustrations that you find in the book. I think they're very beautiful. I do wish it had had a little bit more, honestly, because there are some parts of the Cruel Prince trilogy where I really would have liked to delve into Cardan's POV a little bit more, just to fully understand him a bit better, and during like very climactic parts of the trilogy. I would have enjoyed that. So I gave it 4. You know, it's fine. No, not everybody likes Cruel Prince stuff. It's a hit or miss for some people. It was a hit for me. I enjoyed it. I know there's problems in it. I'm not going to deny that there are problems. So the next one I already took off the dust jacket because I thought I was going to finish it in time and then I didn't. So it was primed to go on the other shelf. But this is Crown's Fate by Evelyn Skye. This is the sequel to The Crown's Game. And I also gave this 4 stars. Very fun Russian magic and romance and a very interesting kind of thing. If you like things like Night Circus and stuff, you'll probably like that duology. Then I read my very first 1 star of the year, which is Cassidy Chronicles. The first book in this is called Run Like Hell. There are 3 books in this bound copy, and I really, really did not enjoy that. You can see the full vlog of me ranting about how much I did not like that book. Then I read Anne of Ingleside by Ellen Montgomery. I was continuing, and I years ago said I was going to reread the entire series, and I have not done that yet. We still got 2 more to go. 2 more of Anne to go. Haven't read anything else then, so I gave that 4 stars as well. I really did like the kids in this one. They actually felt very Anne. Then I read The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. Again, this is Norse mythology retelling stuff. I also gave this 4 stars. Super duper enjoyed that. Then we read Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. This is the sequel companion to Winter's Orbit. I gave it a 3.5 stars. I thought it was the same book as Winter's Orbit, just different characters and slightly different things, but it's the same book. You can just read Winter's Orbit again and it's the same. Then we bump up to a 4.5. We read Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca. I thought this was the final book in the Ren Fair series of Willow Creek, but lo and behold, Jen DeLuca has announced that she is writing a 5th book. I believe will be Caitlin's book, who is the daughter of April, who is the main character in the 3rd book. So I look forward to this. I did really enjoy this one. I still think Well Matched is my favorite of them though. But I like this one. This is probably my 2nd favorite. Then we read another indie book. Also, I gave this one 3.5, and that is After by Savannah Jazowski. I like this, but I can't really tell you much about it at this point. I don't remember too much, but I don't think we're ever getting a full sequel, so it did some things by the end that I just wasn't really caring for. Then we have our very first 5-star read of the year, and that is Sisters of Sword and Song by Rebecca Ross. This is a standalone fantasy romance, and I absolutely adored this. I love her world building. I love her magic system in this. I loved her characters in this. I loved this all around. Like, obviously it's a 5-star. I loved the whole thing. The next book I read is an ebook, and that was Bad Hand by O.E. Tierman, which is an interim little interlude book for the Aces High Joker's Wild series, and it's a little Halloween special. It's very short. It's like 28 pages, but it's very fun if you read the series and you like the characters, and it's just a fun little, hey, I need a quick read. There you go, short story. Then we read The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, and I gave it 3. It's fine. It's longer than it needs to be. You want to hear about Parisian architecture in the 1600s? You're good. Then we read The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. This was very much a surprise. Didn't really know what was happening at the beginning here. I went in pretty blind, but I ended up enjoying it, and I have ordered the sequel since just to finish it up, but very different than what I thought it was going to be, but not in a bad way, and I gave that 4 stars. Then we have another indie book, and that is The City Beyond the Glass by Susanna Rowantree. This is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and I really enjoyed it, except for a few parts of it. I gave it 4 stars. There is an entire series for these, and this is the last one in the series, but they're all companions, so you can read them out of order. I did enjoy it. I was actually expecting a Medusa thing in this, but there's a reason for the Gorgon. It's not a Medusa retelling, FYI. It's a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. Did kind of have unlikable characters in it, which is what I don't normally like all that much, but it was fine. Then we read another classic, which was Dracula by Bram Stoker, and I actually really enjoyed this one. I was more invested. This is one of the few classics that I actually felt myself following and being more invested in. So I get the hype around Dracula. Very fun. I liked it a lot. Then we have another indie book that I was really happy to read, and that is Brady Von Alphuis and the Pesky Pest Controller by Tycho Dwellis, and I love this. This was super fun. If you really like Addams Family kind of stuff, this is a normal kid with a very weird, spooky kind of family, and it was very fun and very enjoyable and a very quick read. I read it entirely on the plane. Then we have another 5-star read, and that is The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon. If you don't know, Samantha Shannon also wrote Priory of the Orange Tree. That's what she's more famous for right now. This is from her other series, her earlier series called The Bone Season. This is the sequel to it, and I thoroughly enjoy this. I love her world building. I love her characters. I love her magic system. It's all just all around a great time, even when it's chunky, but I like a good chunk of a book. Then we have a little baby book, also a 5-star read and a 2023 release. This is the first book that I have read that is a brand new release, and that is Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. It's a little novella after Sorcery of Thorns, and we get a little compact story within this one. I wish it was longer, and I don't want this series to end. I love these characters so very much, and I don't want them to leave me ever. Then we read a 3-star, and that is The Librarians and Lost Lamp. This is based off of the TV show The Librarians, also by the same name for the movies. Movies came first, then TV show, if you don't know. I'm a huge fan of the show. This was fine. It was okay. I don't think it was for me. I wanted more of these characters, and it was mostly about Flynn, and Flynn in the series is not my favorite. I like Flynn in the movies. I don't like him in the series, so then we read Kuro Kenshin Volume 3 by Hala, and I enjoyed the series. It's not my favorite thing in the world because I'm not really a good manga or comic reader. It's just not my method. I don't really connect well, and I have a really bad time trying to connect action and stuff, and the storytelling in comics is so much faster than what I'm used to in a narrative, so I don't connect well with them, but I do enjoy the series. It's kind of got that nostalgic feel for like classic manga and stuff, so there you go. It's not out right now. You can't read it right now, but it's coming soon. Then we read another 2023 release, which I actually got in December somehow. Fairy Loot gave it early, but that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, or Encyclopedia. I don't know how you pronounce it correctly, but I want to say Encyclopedia because it sounds more fun that way. I love this edition. I loved this so much. I gave it 5 stars. I'm so excited that there will be a sequel to this. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series, but I loved this. I loved the academic angle of it because we read it much like her notes. So if you're not into like kind of academic writing style, it may seem a little bit weird to you, but it was right up my alley of how this was done. There's little footnotes sometimes, and we all know now I'm a sucker for some snarky footnotes, and I just loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Then we read a 4.5 star, almost a 5, but I didn't like it as much as the other 5 stars, and that is Dreams Lie Beneath by Rebecca Ross. It's another fantasy standalone of hers, and I did enjoy this one. I just didn't like it as much as the others. There were some points of this that I was like, huh? And I kind of disconnected, but I do think by the end of the month I was getting a little burnout in reading. Can you guess why? But very fun. Again, if you want some nice standalone fantasy romances, there you go. And lastly was a 3.5 star, and that is The Black Coats by Colleen Oakes. And this is a kind of feminist contemporary literary piece about girls who kind of take revenge on crimes made against women, especially in cases of things like rape and murder, or, you know, revenge porn and stuff like that. So it's their kind of vigilantism, and also noting the problems with vigilantism and but it highlights like neither side is really correct. There's a lot of gray area, and it kind of explores that theme. It was a little harder hitting, not a little, it was hard hitting, but a decent read. I don't think I'm gonna hang on to it because I don't see it as a book that I want to like reread again or anything, but there it is. That is a huge stack of books, just for your reference. That's a big ass stack of books. Oh God, I wasn't even up all the way to the top. Those are the books. That's my quick overview. I hope you guys appreciated quicker reviews like that. I've been trying to beat my brains trying to figure out the best method for reviewing books and doing a wrap up, if anyone actually cares. Now, it's time for stats. It's time for the stuff that we actually care about. Hello from the stats. So this page is my monthly stats page. We can kind of see what we did. As you can see, I read 22 books, totaling to 7,118 pages, and listened to 141 hours on audiobook. I read 6 indies in total, which I'm very happy about. None of them were technically own voices. I have a hard time determining own voices books, by the way, I will say. And then I started 7 new series. I continued 4, and I completed 4. So, you know, not too bad. Average book length was about 323 pages and 323.55 pages, which is pretty standard for an average book. Average audiobook was 12.82 hours. Average days spent reading was just under 3 days, and I had a fairly decent rating of 3.86 on average for those bookies. Obviously, I predominantly read audiobook. Half of the books I read this month were audiobooks, with 11. I read 2 ebooks, which I'm very proud of because I really hate reading ebooks. 6 of them were paperback and 3 of them were hardcover. I know most people just say physical, but I like also noting the difference between hardcover and paperback. And this is surprising since I predominantly own hardcovers. Having more paperbacks is very interesting for me. Then where I acquired them, especially the we're talking non-physical copies here. We're talking digital copies. 7 of them I read off of my Libby app. 4 of them I read off my Scribd app. I didn't read any from Hoopla. I had one special edition, which is the Emily Wilde, so that one does count physical. Then I had one that I paid money for on Kindle, which I believe was Bad Hand. I think it was like 99 cents. One first edition, which... what did I put as first edition on here? I feel like there's actually more first editions. I don't know why it's like that. That's, oh no, first like 2023 release. That's the Mysteries of Thorn Manor first edition that way. I didn't read any ARCs, and I had one author PDF, which is Kodo Kenshin. Cool. With the audience, surprisingly, I read more adult than anything. I read 11 adult. Half the books I read this month were adult. Who is this person? Who am I? I read 1 middle grade, which is Brady Van Althuis, and 10 young adults. So that's actually quite shocking to me, especially because I very rarely read middle grade, and I read predominantly YA. So it's weird. With the genre breakdown, so I'm hyper specific about my genres. I don't just say fantasy, sci-fi. I like to give them a bit more because it's going to be a lot of fantasy anyway. But we predominantly read, surprisingly, historical fantasy. That was big. 19% were historical fantasy, followed by fantasy romance, 14.3%, and also classics. Fantasy romance and classics are tied there. So you can also see I did contemporary literary, 2 paranormal fantasies, 1 dystopian sci-fi, 2 dystopian fantasies, 1 contemporary romance, 1 mythology, and 2 sci-fi romances. Average ratings, I'm always kind of averaging at around 4. That's the biggest one. I had 9 4-stars. We had then 4 5-stars, which is actually pretty darn good. 2 4.5, 3 3.5, 2 3s, 1 2.5, and 1 1. we don't talk about that one. And then what type of one? Predominantly they're going to be novels, because that's what I read mostly, but I did read 2 novellas. No, wait, yeah, 2 novellas, 1 anthology, 1 manga/comic, and 1 short story. As for author status, now I'm not actually sure how you guys feel about debut, because The Devouring Grey is technically a debut. It is not a debut this year. Do you think it should only count as debut if it's a debut this year, or if it's the debut book of said author? Let me know your thoughts on that, and I'll adjust as necessary. But 11 of these authors were new to me, and 10 of them were repeats. So a nice, almost even split. Representation-wise, not as great as I would like. We only had 4 queer main characters, 5 queer side characters, and then 13 of these books did not even include any queer characters that were like mentioned or actually stated. There might have been ones that were queer coded, but not actually outright stated. Same with disability. There was 4 main characters with a disability, 3 side characters with a disability, but 15 of them were absent of disability. So not great representation wise this month. 16 of the authors were people who identify as women, as far as I know. 4 men, 1 non-binary, and 1 trans man. 0 trans women this month. Character gender breakdown, kind of here are the protagonists. We had 12. It was a, solo woman-led book. 4 were solo men-led book. 6 were combination. And then none of them were non-binary, trans, or like a variety that include like someone who identifies as male, female, and non-binary. Didn't have much of that, so unfortunate that way. Author nationalities, predominantly I read American authors. I'm in America, that's what gets marketed to me. So 15 of them were American authors. I read 2 Canadian authors, 2 British authors, 1 French, and 1 Irish, and that was pretty much my breakdown. So, European, Canadian, American. That's my breakdown there. As for the book setting, this is also a fun new thing that I wanted to start tracking. We did have predominantly set in the US. So we had 7 books set in the US. We had 1 set in Russia, 1 set in Japan, 3 set in England. Some of it's kind of, yeah, it's mostly around that area. 1 set in France, obviously that's Hunchback. And then 4 were completely fictional lands. 1 was in space or another planet. Then 2 set in Norway, which I just thought was crazy fun. And 1 set in Canada, which was Anne of Ingleside. That's a really fun thing. Then we break down our publishers. So I list all of their main imprints, and then I look at who owns that imprint, basically, is how I'm determining this. So Self-Pub won, though. Self-Pub won with 5 self-published, and then 1 small press, which is kind of the indie small self-published thing. 2 were from Paper Mill Press, which is Book Outlet's press, and I didn't thank you for researching that for me and figuring it out. But in terms of the big 5, Penguin wins with 4. We had 1 from Hachette, 3 from HarperCollins, and none from Simon & Schuster, and 3 from Macmillan. I do think I actually predominantly on the books that I own, I'm not sure, I haven't actually done this stat yet because I haven't been researching all the publishers until I've read the book, but I'm placing a bet right now that most of the books I own are under Penguin. I'm going with that because, I mean, just in this month alone, I've read a lot of books from Penguin. Publication year. We also have this fun guess. So predominantly I have read books, 8 books, between the years of 2015 and 2019. And that was the biggest one. Then 2020s were the next ones up with 3. And then I read 2 books each from 2021, 2022, and 2023. 1 from 1900s to 1989. So that first 89 years of the 1900s, and 2 from the 1800s with the classics. There you go. Then also the acquisition year. So I had to do a lot of research trying to figure out when I got these books, but I tracked this down. All right, thank you, email receipts. But predominantly the books I acquired were from last year in 2022. So 10 of those were from last year. 6 of those were from 2020. 3 of them were 2019, 2 from 2021, and 1 from 2023, which is Mysteries of Thorn Manor, Encyclopedia of Fairies, I got last year. Then also where I got the book from. So last year I did really bad with reading my books from Book Outlet. I'm doing really good this time, and I've read 9 of these books were from Book Outlet. I had 2 from my Phoenix Crate subscription from a long time ago. 1 I got from a convention. One I got from a small bookstore, one Fairy Loot. 2 of them were directly from the authors, 2 of them were gifted to me, 1 from Tattered Cover, 1 from Amazon, 1 from a Facebook marketplace, 1 from Pengo. And then lastly, I did the cost. So this is how much these books that I read this month actually cost me out of pocket, was $187.51, averaging about $8.52 average cost of the book that I read. It's just a way to put a little bit more value into this. Like, look at it's 22 books for almost not even $200. I'm a smart book shopper, okay? That's the stats, that's the stats. That's how I track my stuff. And we've been doing good with, I track a lot of different things on this lovely spreadsheet, so that's fun. But that is the January monthly stats. Is there anything else you think I should be tracking, guys? Because I can add more. So anyway, that's that. That's the wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I don't know which book I think is my favorite from the month though. Between all the other 5 stars. That's a difficult decision that maybe we'll have to do a video about later on. Battle of the death of the 5-star reads. I forgot to do the little mini book haul. I was gonna do a little mini book haul in this. So really quickly, here's all the books that I acquired in January that I spent absolutely no money on except for one because it was my regular Fairy Loot thing. So here's the books that I got because I won pre-orders against my dad in Christmas, and then other people like bought stuff for me or I traded them at convention. And I think that's all the reasons. There's not that many, so we're gonna look at them right now. Cool. Number 1, we got The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. Got this for pre-order from my dad. Woo! Then we got Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Amelie Zhao. Sorry, it's late now and we're doing this really quickly. I'm very excited. Look how pretty this is. I already have it on hold. Another pre-order we got is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. I'm literally currently reading this. I am about halfway done. Then we have 100 Fathoms Below by Stephen L. Kent and Nicholas Kaufman. Nina sent this to me as one of the commissioned 5 books that I have to do. I will be reading this later this month. And of course we have Mysteries of Thorn Manor. I already read this and I loved it so much. Oh my god, I'm so glad I got this. Then a book that I pre-ordered last year finally arrived, and that is The Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. And this is the fancy Fairy Loot matching one for the one that I got in the adult book subscription last year. I'm actually not that excited about it though. I don't really know why I pre-ordered it. Next one, for some reason, I cannot find to save the life of me, but it is called The Strange and Savage Life of a Brass Key Journalist by Erin Spriggs. And I got this as a trade at my Malachi Cosign. And the next one I got also at Cosign as a trade was The Oat Project, which is a nonfiction memoir by Janae Jackson. And also at Cosign, we traded Andrew G. Meredith for his book Deathless Beasts, which is the first one. I am super excited to read this. He was super fun to meet at Cosign. Then Lena was super kind to give me her Book of the Month subscription for January because she didn't have anything that she wanted. So I got Lunar Love by Lauren Kung Jessen. I'm very excited. Nice, fun, contemporary romance. And the only book that I actually purchased was because of my Fairy Loot subscription, the adult subscription box, and that was The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi. Very excited. I like Roshni Chokshi's writing. I'm hoping this does not disappoint, but I have so far heard mixed things. That is it! That's the haul. That's all the books that I got in January. I was so good about my book buying, bad guys. I am not good in February. I've already gotten a lot. Cool. Now bye! I'm going to go now. What did you guys read in January? Do you track any of your stats and stuff? Put that all down below. If you like this video, please go check out my Ko-fi page. I desperately am saving up for a new car now because my car keeps getting in accidents. People just hit it when it's completely stationary and I'm not even in the car. So please check out my Ko-fi page. Help me out there if you are able. And I will see you next time, cuties. Bye. Took off the dust jacket. I'm out of order here. This is from her earlier season, The Bone Seed.